I can think of two that come to mind. The first one was something that we did in the early 2000s, and this was during the prepaid phone wars, prepaid cards, and my rates are better than yours, my rates are cheaper than yours. So, the brief that landed on my table that very day was from the client, and the brief was, do me a print ad so that we need to tell our audience that our prepaid rates are cheaper than everybody else's. And I looked at the brief and I went, oh God, it's another one of these briefs, And which is no different from what the other competing agency handling the competing brand is also doing. So I just took a step back and I said, why are we working on this nonsense again? We're just going on this hamster wheel of nonsense again. And who's going to read this ad, Because there's always going to be an asterisk and terms and conditions apply, right?
Yeah.
So, and this is one of my favorite quotes, right? You can be today's ad in the newspaper, but you will be tomorrow's nasi lemak wrapper. So, and that's how consumers view advertising, and increasingly more so in today's age,
Yeah.
So anyway, coming back to this project, I decided, no, I'm not gonna do this ad because there makes no sense of us doing it because everybody else will be doing the same thing. And then I sat down and I just had a little thought, and a little light bulb moment came to say, is there a way where we can literally tell the truth about prepaid rates? So after speaking to our account service people, speaking to the client, and finally getting an answer from everybody, and they said, yes, our rates are definitely cheaper than competitor A and B. So with that information, we decided to actually not do a print ad, we decided to do a web calculator, a micro page that actually was called The Truth About Prepaid. And what it did was it was completely unbranded. It had all the rates laid out in a calculator that featured competitor A, competitor B, competitor C. Obviously, our rates were cheaper, but we allowed the audience to decide that for themselves.
Wow.
Okay? Completely unbranded. With this website and the web calculator, what we did was then we decided to advertise this website called thetruthaboutprepaid.com. Here's where the fun came. Here's where the idea came. We had to, obviously drive traffic to this website. So we created a mob, some bunch of guys dressed in a certain color of a certain brand with picket signs to go and picket outside the competitors' offices. So if you can imagine, we had pictures of people wearing a certain color outside a certain office. Even the police were called.
Wow.
Right? So we had this bunch of lorries with, protesters going to the various other competitor offices to do this protest. And of course, we drove a hell of a lot of traffic to this website. And the wonderful thing is when you give consumers the chance to make the decision for themselves, that epiphany coming through the consumer, going, holy cow, they're right, these rates are definitely cheaper than the rest. So obviously it created a lot of market share for the brand that we were handling. Years later, when I met up with my various creative director colleagues from the other agencies, they were telling me, wow, when this campaign came out, we were given an earful from the client. The client said, why did you not actually anticipate something like this? They were given 24 hours to come up with a turnaround solution for that. We even had somebody spoof our website because we forgot to register the truthaboutprepaid.com.my. But it didn't matter because the consumers, we managed to capture the imagination of the consumers.
Right.
So I think that was a case study that I was very happy to work on because I love kind of shaking, the status quo and making, the other brands kind of, shake a little bit.